David read some poetry to us last week. I have the Zoom as does David, and he could send it out to anyone interested. Two, Aron Bremer has the book up on Amazon, which I got and thoroughly enjoyed. Three, I've posted some events. I'm the featured poet at Austin Poetic License next week, and then I have a special Veterans Day thing on Veterans Day that I post the events. So, and before I read in Austin at 4 o'clock Eastern time, Michael Sindler has a 2 o'clock event there that he's also posted in the chat. So that's all the commercial announcements. Okay, I'm going to read. Well, this is quasi commercial because it's from one of my new books, the collected poems 2008-2010. Today is election day in the United States, and in many cases, people have been talking about race and race theory. There was an interesting fellow the other day. They interviewed him about the Virginia race, and they said, "What's the most important topic?" And he said, "It's critical race theory." And I said, "Oh, would you explain that?" He said, "Well, I really don't understand it." But that was number one topic. So I'm going to read some race-related things. The little black boy. When I was just 11, the little white boy, the little black boy changed my life. I grew up in an Irish Jewish neighborhood. That is understating it. There were few Italians, the less Jews, almost no Protestants, and no blacks. I heard about blacks. I cheered for Jackie Robinson and didn't see what the big deal was. Why didn't I always let them play? But I also heard the terms that we now know as racist, coon, boogie, and of course the N-word. But I didn't see any of this as a big deal either. They called each other shanty, the lace curtain, stupid mix, etc. Then I went to a Catholic grammar school, tracked me outside my neighborhood at night. I had to fight to get my parents to let me go. So I'm standing in a line, the long line for a soda. Then this little black kid, about 8 years old, was being a real pain in the ass, jumping all around, making noise, behaving like, well, an 8-year-old. Finally, he stepped on my toes. I grabbed him by the shoulders, shook him, and pushed him, saying, "Get out of here, little nigga." He ran off crying. I was still in line when he came back with his big brother. I immediately knew that it was all over. These guys carry knives. I was dead. He came up to me and said, "Did you call my brother a nigger?" I gulped and said yes. He looked at me harshly and said, "You're a Catholic, you should know better," and walked away. And from then on, I knew better. If you had just kicked the shit out of me, as I expected, all I would have learned was to look for the big brother first. Move ahead a number of years to Lawton, 1963. I was in the Army at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in what then seemed like a colossal waste of time. But in retrospect, it was really the very important part of my life. The town adjacent to Fort Sill, the Lawton, had no industry. But it did have bars, clip joints, hookers, never else could separate the sergeant from his money. It also had an Italian section, an Indian section, a Mexican section, the black section, the white soldier section, and a white real person section. In New York City, we had neighborhoods, Italian neighborhoods, Jewish neighborhoods, Irish neighborhoods, black neighborhoods. And of course, but we never thought of the New York City segregated. Maybe we should have. But Lawton was definitely segregated. Anyway, my platoon had an IG inspection and did extremely well. My platoon sergeant, a very sharp soldier who I respected, gathered us together and said, "I'm proud of you. You did very well. The supply started, and I just bought a boat a mile out of town. Come on down. The first one's on me. No dope. Hey, if we started drinking a mile from nowhere, we were there to stay. Because anyone knowing us might expect Warren from the old neighborhood and I were the first ones from our unit to arrive. We went into around my third beer when Bob, also from Inwood, walked in with two other folks, both black. The bartender saw me greet them and said to me, I can't serve those folks. Because obviously they meant the black folks. I explained to my sergeant owned this place and invited his unit down for a beer, and that these folks were part of the unit. No good, the bartender said. They should have known that the invitation didn't include them. That, of course, set me off, and I was soon as persona non grata as my black friends. Out in the parking lot, I said, okay, where can we get to drink together? Only to be told, no place in this town. So they went to their bars, and Bob Warren and I went to ours. I was reluctant to send to my platoon sergeant. He was, after all, my superior. But 4 weeks later, after I was transferred to another unit, I was sitting in a bar with a book, got a pitcher of beer. Not an unusual sight. When Sergeant Jones came in the door, I waved him over to my table, poured him a beer, and told him the story. He said, I feel terrible, but I hate to cause anyone to be embarrassed. Great, he wouldn't let that happen in his bar. But he added, we really don't mix down here. I plunged right in. What do you think of Sergeant Lowry, black superior? He's a fine soldier and a gentleman. Would you have a beer with him? I have in the NCO club. He's good company. Undaunted and not knowing when to quit, I went on. Would you have him to your house? He looked at me as though I was bereft of my senses. I have a wife and a daughter. I had no idea what to say. I mumbled something, changed the subject, finished my beer, and went on my way. That was 46 years ago. That's at the time that I wrote this. Things have changed greatly. Barack Obama now commands the armed forces. But are we all different? I hope so. Thank you for putting up with me.